We're going to pick it up here in a moment in chapter 28, along about verse 20 here. Jacob is on his way to his uncle Laban's to take a wife among our own people instead of marrying one of the Hittite women, Canaanite women from where they had settled there, Isaac had settled. And he's stopped over in a place, and he had a pillow that he used, and heaven opened for him. And of course, that signifies Christ, that would come through this one who's going to establish the 12 patriarchs here very soon as he's on his way to this place. How fascinating it is the way our Father touches lives of people he uses. And certainly he had this one. So let's pick it up there, if we may, as Jacob is moving forward. And he knew this was a holy place because God and the angel spoke to him, or I should say more correctly, the angel of God, and showed him these wonderful things, renewed or reconfirmed, better said, the covenant made with this family. So we pick it up there in verse 20 of chapter 28, a word of wisdom from our Father, and it reads, "And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on," 21, "so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall the Lord be my God." If he keeps his word, I'm going to keep mine. And naturally that was unnecessary, but he said it anyway. 22, "And this stone, which I have set for a pillar, shall be God's house, and of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the tenth unto thee." And there is that stone, and I still say, you know, many people, now that we have done more research, we know this is the stone that is called the Stone of Scone. And certainly how fascinating it is that it was carried with our people, where even the kings or queens, where that coronation is put into effect, their first oath is the protector of the faith for Israel. You know, not many people know that, but that is a fact, and we thank our Father for that. Chapter 29, as we continue, verse 1. "Then Jacob went on his journey, and he came into the land of the people of the east," and that's to say the children of the east. They're at where Laban and the others were too. "And he looked, and behold, a well in the field. And lo, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. For out of that well they watered the flocks. A great stone was upon the well's mouth." Now here, I mean, you know, it's the middle of the day, basically. The sheep should be out grazing. But here they have this custom where they're going to water them all at one time. And evidently this stone was quite huge. And this is their agreement. Water very scarce. And naturally the sheep's waiting for that water. Verse 3. "And thither were all the flocks gathered, and they rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the sheep and put the stone again into the well's mouth in its place." All the herdsmen, they accomplished this at one time, the agreement made with them. 4. "And Jacob said unto them, My brethren, whence be ye? And they said, Of Haran are we." In other words, this was the family he's looking for. 5. "And he said unto them, Know ye Laban, the son of Nahor? And they said, We know him." Verse 6. "And he said unto them, Is he well? And they said, He is well, and behold, Rachel his daughter cometh with the sheep." And here, I mean, Laban didn't own enough sheep, but that this one little girl could take care of them. I mean, he's not exactly a rich man. But this one of his younger, little Rachel, coming with them at this time. Jacob's heart's going to do a flip-flop here. He's going to see Rachel and fall in love with her, just boom. God arranges things. Verse 7. "And he said, Lo," or why, it is yet high day. It's early. And neither is it time that the cattle should be gathered together. Water ye the sheep and go and feed them. What are you hanging around here for? Jacob was a pretty good herdsman, as we will document before this is over. And what a waste this is. And they said, we cannot, until all the flocks be gathered together, until they roll the stone from the well's mouth, then we water the sheep. In other words, I guess it would take more than one for them to roll that stone away. And then this agreement was so that everybody shared. The water was a precious thing in this area. Verse 9, but it's not something to be foolish about. 9 reads, and while he yet spake with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she kept them. This kind of lets you know Laban's wealth at this time, not all that hot. Verse 10, and it came to pass when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went near and rolled a stone from the well's mouth. He didn't need any help. And watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. He took charge and watered them. 11, what did he do then? And Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. I'm sure it was with joy. I found her. This is it. This is my wife. This is what I came here for. And I'm sure he fell in love with little old Rachel right there. And but of course, naturally, for family, this was custom also. Verse 12. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's brother, and that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. Now, in the Hebrew language, there's no such thing as nephews and uncles, but brother means kinsman. And what he was, Laban was his uncle, and he was Laban's nephew. And so it was. Verse 13. And it came to pass when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. And he told Laban all these things. And he was happy to see him. Laban means white, the color white. Verse 14. And Laban said to him, surely thou art my bone and my flesh. And he abode with him the space of a month. Stayed there 30 days. 15, and Laban said unto Jacob, because thou art my brother, it was his nephew, shouldest thou therefore serve me for naught? Tell me, what shall thy wages be? What you're working for me? He watered those sheep. Poor little old Rachel, with no way she could roll that stone. 16, and Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, which means weak-eyed. And the name of the younger was Rachel, which means ewe, like a sheep, a lamb. 17, and Leah was tender-eyed. That means she was weak-eyed. But Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. She was a beautiful woman. 18, and Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. And he made it very clear which one he loved. And this would be the dowry, which was customary. He didn't have anything, but this is the way he would pay the dowry to have her. 19, and Laban said, it is better that I give her to thee than that I should give her to another man. Abide with me. It's a deal. Okay. We're going to swing it that way. Verse 20, and Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days for the love he had to her. He was definitely loved her. 21, and Jacob said unto Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. That's 7 years. This is it. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. Laban's pretty wealthy by this time. Do you know why? because of Jacob. God blessed everything that Jacob did. And the sheep had multiplied until he was able to put on quite a feast. 23, and it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to him, and he went in unto her. In other words, I'm sure with the party and the celebrating and the veils and everything else, he didn't know. 24, and Laban gave unto him his daughter Leah, Zilpah his maid, for an handmaid. Zilpah, I mean, he's tricking him. 25, and it came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah, and he said to Laban, what is this thou hast done unto me? Did not I serve with thee for Rachel? That was the agreement. Wherefore then hast thou beguiled me? And certainly so it is that Laban was, he was kind of subtle in some of his dealings. And he will pass this off in this way, verse 26, and Laban said, it must not be so done in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. And this is a pretense that he uses for his having done this. It's pure out and out trickery, because Jacob had definitely mentioned, it's Rachel that I love. Verse 27, fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve with me yet 7 other years. Laban's cashing in here. Now, you're not going to have to wait 7 years to marry Rachel, but go this one wedding week, and then you could marry Rachel also, but you owe me 7 more years. That's taking advantage of the lad. What is he going to do? 28, and Jacob did so, and fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel, his daughter, to wife also. He honored his word. Verse 29, and Laban gave to Rachel his daughter Bilhah, that's timid or kind of bashful in the Hebrew tongue, his handmaid, to be her maid. He loved his daughters, and he took care of them, gave them each a handmaid. 30, and he went in also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet 7 other years. Poor Leah, this is a little unfair to her. 31, and when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. He saw that she was loved less rather than just hated, probably would be a better translation. 32, and Leah conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. And Reuben means behold, or see a son. Behold a son. 33. And she conceived again. You'll notice they always go in pairs, the patriarchs do. She conceived again and bare a son, and said, because the Lord hath heard that I was hated, he hath therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon, which is to say, a hearing. God hurt her. 34. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi. And Levi, which would be the priest line, of course, means joined. And it's amazing how God works, because naturally, through the truth, many people are joined unto Almighty God. Verse 35, and she conceived again, and bare a son, and she said, now will I praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah, and left bearing. In other words, that was it. See, Judah meaning praised, and this would be the king line, naturally. This would be the very lineage through which the Christ child would come. after Almighty God has to dress Judah down a time or two, as we will learn in this great book. So here we see the patriarchs, the very tribes of the house of Israel, and later it will be split, not at this time, but it will be split into the house of Judah and the house of Israel. The house of Israel, which would be the 10 northern tribes, would be taken captive 200 years before the tribe of Judah. The house of Judah would be taken captive by King Nebuchadnezzar 200 years later. And we'll come to that as we go through. Chapter 30, verse 1. And when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister, and said unto Jacob, give me children, or else I die. She was grieved. Verse 2, and Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel. And he said, am I in God's stead? Who hath withheld from thee the fruit of the womb? In other words, what he's saying is, ask the Father. Don't ask me. Ask the living God. And the verse, and then we have in verse 3, and she said, behold, my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, and that I may also have children by her. And in other words, I'll adopt them. So go in to my maid, my father gave me. Verse 4, and she gave him Bilhah, her handmaid, to wife, and Jacob went in unto her. He never seems to argue with this. Okay. Verse 5, and Bilhah conceived and bare Jacob a son. 6, and Rachel said, God hath judged me, and hath also heard my voice, hath given me a son, therefore called she his name Dan, and Dan in the Hebrew tongue means judging, and that being his name. Verse 7, and Bilhah, Rachel's maid, conceived again. Always go in pairs here. And bare Jacob a second son. 8, and Rachel said, with great wrestlings have I wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali, which means my wrestling. Verse 9, and when Leah saw that she had left bearing, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife. 10, and Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a son. 11, and Leah said, a troop cometh. And she called his name Gad. And of course, Gad in the Hebrew tongue means a troop. 12, and Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a second son. Always in pairs here. 13, and Leah said, happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed. And she called his name Asher, and Asher in the Hebrew tongue means happy. 14, and Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field, and he brought them unto his mother Leah. And then Rachel said to Leah, give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes. Now, mandrakes are kind of a special fruit, so to speak. The Arabs call them Satan's apples, because there is a bit of a hallucinatory side to the mandrake, and though it looks like a part of a man, is called why it gets its name, and so it is called. Verse 15, and she said unto her, is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband? Question. And wouldest thou take away my son's mandrakes also? And Rachel said, therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes. I'll make a deal with you. I'll see that he lies with you tonight if you give me the mandrakes. 16, and Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him and said, thou must come in unto me, for surely I have hired thee with my son's mandrakes. And he lay with her that night. He never seemed to object to how things were arranged for him. Verse 17, and God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived and bare Jacob the fifth son. Always in pairs now, this being the fifth. And Leah said, God hath given me my hire, because I have given my maiden to my husband. And she called his name Issachar. And Issachar in the Hebrew tongue, of course, means my hire. 19, and Leah conceived again, and bare Jacob the sixth son. 20, and Leah said, God hath endued me with a great dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. And she called his name Zebulun. And Zebulun means dwelling. And so it is that Leah would have those 6. Verse 21, and afterwards she bare a daughter and called her name Dinah, which means vindication or even judgment, if you would. 22, and God remembered Rachel. Finally, God hearkened to her and opened her womb. 3, and she conceived and bare a son, and she said, God hath taken away my reproach. 24, and she called his name Joseph, and said, the Lord shall add to me another son. And here with this one Joseph, she called him Joseph, meaning adding. It is amazing that this Joseph will be one of Jacob's favorites. He will be the one that will save the whole tribe, in a sense. He'll be blessed of God. So adding probably is the correct name for him. 25, and it came to pass when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said unto Laban, send me away, that I may go into mine own place and to my country. Now, Rachel is going to have one more son for Jacob, and she will call him Ben-Ani, which is son of my sorrow. He would be born at Bethlehem, the same place that Christ would be born, Bethlehem, Judah. But unfortunately, the reason she would name him son of my sorrow, Ben-Ani, is because it would bring about her death. She would die in childbirth when they traveled to this place, which is today called Bethlehem, and even at that time was called Bethlehem, Judah. But Jacob would change the name from Ben-Ani to Benjamin, which is to be translated saying son of my right hand, and so it would be. But here now he's quite wealthy, or he has made Laban quite wealthy. Lots of sheep, goats, and cattle, and he has his family, and he has fulfilled his time, and he's ready to go. Let's go with the next verse, please. Verse 26. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and let me go. For thou knowest my service which I have done thee. I made him a rich man. He was a fantastic, Jacob was a fantastic husbandman. He knew how to, but most of all, God blessed him. Everything he touched. Verse 27, and Laban said unto him, I pray thee, if I have found favor in thine eyes, tarry. For I have learned by experience that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake. I know that all this blessing is because of you. And because what did he have when Jacob came there? Well, Rachel could take care of all the sheep. She didn't need any help. And now it took many to tend the flocks, the herds. 28, and he said, appoint me thy wages, and I will give it. You just ask what you will, and I'll agree to it. Verse 29, and he said unto him, thou knowest how I have served thee, and how thy cattle was with me. You know how I took care of them. 30, for it was little which thou hadst before I came. You had hardly anything. And it is now increased unto a multitude. And the Lord hath blessed thee since my coming. And now, when I shall provide for mine own house also. I want to take care of them. I want to build a herd for them also. 31, and he said, what shall I give thee? And Jacob said, thou shalt not give me anything. If thou wilt do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep thy flock. 32, I will pass through all thy flock today, removing from thence all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and of such shall be my hire. I'll take them. I'll always take the speckled, and you keep all that is white. And of course, that being Laban's name. 33, so shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, when it shall come for my hire before thy face, every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats, and brown among the sheep, that shall be counted stolen with me. In other words, if I claim any of them that is white, all white, it means I would have stolen, and I'm not about to. I'm not about to steal any. Those are your part. Verse 34, and Laban said, behold, I would it might be according to thy word. I'm going to agree to it. We'll just do it that way. In the future, all you'll have is the speckled and the spotted, and I'll keep the pure white. Well, naturally, you know, Laban's pretty sharp. Naturally, most sheep would be pure white. Verse 35, and he removed that day the he-goats that were ring-straked and spotted, and all the she-goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white in it, and all the brown among the sheep, and gave them into the hand of his sons. Old Laban said, you get them out of here. He knew that as long as the he-goats that were spotted were there were going to be more spotted cattle. So he's crooked. I mean, he's trying to take advantage of the situation. 36. And he set 3 days' journey betwixt himself and Jacob. And Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. In other words, he moved them far enough away that the street that would have been Laban's couldn't mix. 37, here you have some of the first animal husbandry of the practice of selective breeding in God's Word. Listen to it. 37, and Jacob took him rods of green poplar and of the hazel and chestnut tree, and tilled white stakes in them, and made the white appear which was in the rods. He sharpened them, okay, and drove them. And verse 38, and he set the rods which he had peeled before the flocks in the gutters in the watering troughs, when the flocks came to drink, that they could conceive when they came to drink. Now you'll have a lot of people that will say, well, it was the poplar, or it was the chestnut tree. That had nothing to do with it. All he did was built a fence whereby he could separate, make it a chute, if you would, on the way to the watering trough. And what will happen is he will, as you're going to find out here, he'll put a speckled he-goat or a speckled he-ram at the end of the chute, and when an animal comes in heat, regardless of what color it is, it's going down that chute, and where he's got it all laid out here. The wood had nothing to do with it. It was the fence and his own separating. When a ewe came in heat, it went to the speckled he-goat or he-ram. Okay. And naturally, what are the offspring going to be? They're mostly going to be speckled, meaning what? They belong to Jacob. It's pretty sharp deal, okay? But the type of wood has nothing to do with it other than the fence. 39, and the flocks conceived before the rods and brought forth cattle ring-straked, speckled, and spotted. Why? Verse 40, and Jacob did separate the lambs and set the faces of the flocks toward the ring-staked and all the brown in the flock of Laban, and he put his own flocks by themselves and put them not unto Laban's cattle. I mean, he's separating them. He's taken his own animals and separated them out of there. And naturally, he's doing quite well. Verse 41. And it came to pass, whensoever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. In other words, he only picked the healthiest and the strongest, the best formed, and sent them down the chute he wanted them to go. 42, and when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in, so the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. Some of the first animal husbandry, and poor old Laban getting his one more verse to complete. And the man increased exceedingly, and had much cattle and maidservants and men servants and camels and asses. Why? Because of his animal husbandry and the way that he managed things. And Laban, trying to shortchange him, ended up getting quite shortchanged himself. So is there anything wrong with that? Well, not really. It was fair and square.